Jorge Linares successfully defended his WBA lightweight championship and his Ring Magazine lightweight championship against Mercito Gesta in what was, I'd say, honestly, a bit of a pedestrian performance. It wasn't a performance where Linares necessarily looked dominant in a way whereby he was, just rocking and hurting Gesta round after round, and clearly kind of physically putting it on Gesta. That said, Gesta is a tough fighter. He's a guy that he only had previously lost to Miguel Vasquez, who himself was a guy that really just outboxed Gesta as opposed to really put it on him physically. The other fight that you could argue that Gesta really lost was against Carlos Molina, in a fight where they went pretty much tit for tat. Molina's somewhat of a basic fighter, but a guy that's physically durable, physically strong. And so him versus Gesta, you could imagine how that fight would turn out to wind up being a draw. Personally, I thought that Molina beat Gesta. I thought he landed a little bit cleaner, a little bit more often. He was able to outwork Gesta as well. In a way, that wasn't too dissimilar from kind of what happened here with Linares, where Linares wasn't necessarily, like I said, stunning Gesta constantly, but he was just kind of hand speed slapping Gesta to death. It was almost like if you were playing Street Fighter and you chose E Honda and you just hit him, you just hit your opponent with that 100 hand slap constantly. That was pretty much what Linares was doing to Gesta all night. Just too quick on his feet, too quick with his hands. Gesta was able to time Linares a little bit here and there. And, Linares isn't a guy necessarily that has outright lights out power unless he kind of catches you with that perfect shot. He can catch certain guys with certain shots where they'll get stunned and he could maybe finish them off afterwards. But in general, he's not such a prolific puncher where he's just gonna just boom hit you with that single shot, almost like what say a Pacquiao would do, like a Pacquiao Hatton type of situation. He has done that to a couple of guys, but they've been for the most part lower level guys as opposed to the more durable kind of repeat title challengers, I'll call them. Like Gesta, and like what's his name that he fought twice, Krolla. But Linares did his thing. He won by a margin that I figured he would pretty much win by. I figured Gesta would give him a little bit of trouble at the very least. Like I said, he's a tough, durable guy. He's a guy that can be a little bit tricky here and there. He's got a certain physicality to him that can bother Linares. I think ultimately what bothers Linares most is guys that are physically strong and really ready for a fight. Somebody of like a Turtsak Kokijim, Turtsak Jandeng ilk, I think would actually give Linares a lot of problems, simply by virtue of not being intimidated by his reputation, by his speed, by his snap, and just be coming bulling forward and constantly pressing him. I think ultimately that's really the type of fighter that Linares has had and will have the most trouble with. Regardless of who it happens to be. He has losses to a couple of guys like that in DeMarco and in Yo-Yo Thompson back when. I wouldn't necessarily count Salgado, who was the guy that gave him his first loss, because Salgado just caught him. He just caught him cold in the first round. But, DeMarco, I think, is probably the best example of it, really. This might be the end of the road for Gesta, or who knows? I mean, the guy's only 30, so and this was only his second title shot. Who knows? Maybe when lightweight clears up and these guys start moving up out of the division, which seems like it may happen sooner rather than later, considering Robert Easter may have struggled to make weight against Fortuna. Fortuna didn't even make the weight against Easter. Linares has talked about moving up to try to fight Mikey Garcia, although he also called out, and Oscar De La Hoya put it out that he'd like to see Linares versus Lomachenko. That'd be a really good fight, actually. I actually think that'd be a really interesting, entertaining fight. A lot of speed and engaged in that. Honestly, I think that fight would be almost more akin to what a lot of people thought that Lomachenko versus Rigondeaux was going to be. I think that fight would actually take on that level of action that people were attributing to Lomachenko and Rigondeaux. But Beyond that, you know, hey, Linares is still he's still somewhat the man at lightweight, at least in some people's minds. I wouldn't necessarily say that like, oh, he's head and shoulders above anybody and everybody else, but I guess at the very least he's really the most established guy there as it stands. But we'll see, man. We'll see if he ever happens to come across that type of opponent that has more of that kind of relentless mentality in front of him. We'll see. We'll see what he's got at that point. You know, if maybe even if some of the other guys at from 130 were to move up and fight him, you know, I could see a Burchelt being that type of kind of boogeyman that keeps Linares awake at night. You know, if not even Robert Easter himself or Mikey Garcia. You know, although those two guys tend to be more kind of stylistic boxer punchers as opposed to more relentless, durable punching, kind of KO artist-esque type fighters. But hey, who knows? Maybe we'll even see him against Tank Davis. I highly doubt it, but I think that'd be pretty entertaining at the very least for however long it would last. But that's all I got for this one. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.